in the overall market. It's different than if you look at the number of transactions that occur at the higher price points, so like the luxury home market. But having some idea of how many buyers and sellers an agent has worked with in the last 12 months, and obviously if you're a buyer, it's more important to understand how many buyers they've represented. Because I think this is the thing that I find that clients are most taken back by, is there are people that hold themselves out as a full-time real estate agent, yet they do so little business that the clients would be completely astonished if they asked this question and they said, well, I really haven't done any this year. You know, it's August. It's the end of August, it's September. They say, well, how many sellers have you represented in the last 12 months? And they say, well, none.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that as a buyer or seller, you have to make some sort of a judgment call on what you expect as your minimum level of experience. But if you look at the overall Austin market, I'm going to set some expectations for listeners. The average is under 3 transactions per year.
I didn't know that. It's been a long time since I did that.
It's a pretty low number. So, you know, and the air gets fairly thin if you're looking for people that are doing more than 30 or 40 transactions a year without a big team. Now, I'm not taking this away from any of the teams that have lots and lots of agents on their team. But if you look at just for a single agent, you're going to not be able to have very good luck if your goal is to say, I want somebody that's doing 5 transactions a month, 60 transactions a year, you know, and you're going to have a whole lot of agents to choose from, and you're going to be pretty frustrated as a buyer. So you need to figure out, based on the average, what your goal and your expectations are, and it's important. Now, this gets into number 6, which is we'd like to talk to a couple of references who are also buyers or sellers. In other words, if you're a first-time buyer, it'd be good to talk to another buyer that this agent's worked with. If you're a seller, you probably want to talk to another seller. And good agents that are professional and doing enough transaction volume should always have a couple of people you can talk to. I love number 7. You know, Barry, I don't think anybody will have any doubt that you and I understand current marketing conditions. We talk about it every week on this podcast. But I think this is my number 1 thing that I say, that if a buyer or a seller wanted to quickly assess the ability of an agent to help them, just asking, well, how's the market currently? Or tell me a little about the market currently. And if they repeat the gossip or the nonsense that people are grousing about in their office versus what's really going on, and can actually tie it down with some numbers or some data, you're potentially going to be running into a challenge working with an agent. You know, and I've always often challenged people just to ask that, how's the market? And what's funny is I've seen people recite what they heard from Jim, who's in the next cube with them at the office, who's frustrated because he took an overpriced listing and it's not selling, and it's at the high end where it's a little bit more challenging. And then they'll answer the question something like, well, the market's pretty challenging right now. We've seen some listings not sell. You know, and if this seller's in the market like Circle C or Legend Oaks, they're going to be like, okay, this agent's out of touch. That's why I think you'd agree, Perry. This is a pretty important question. Ask them about market conditions and how that ties into their ability to sell or buy.
Critical. These are the guys you should have a command, and maybe some other things you should be looking for this in addition to market conditions is make sure you're hearing feedback on how the market conditions are affecting how your home sells. And in addition to the price, how it shows, and the marketing that's required in these types of market conditions. Are they going to do a pre-MLS market blast to some of the agents that's out there? Do you need to depersonalize your home, clean it up, touch up paint, anything that the market is demanding right now? And I think you should be hearing those 3 components of the market conditions: price, how it shows, and that's what the seller controls, and how the marketing on the product is going to be done too. It's critical that those 3 market conditions are assessed.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things where when you talk to sellers who had I'll call it a failed transaction, They hired an agent that didn't sell. We call them expired listings, but an average consumer is not going to really know what that means. It means it was on the market, it was marketed in some manner, it didn't sell. When you talk to enough of those sellers about their previous experience, it's some combination of these 7 questions, especially about market conditions beyond just the real estate market, but how did their house position in it and a number of other things, that you will hear again and again and again how if you went through these questions with them and asked them, did you do something like this, and have a set of questions, I bet you more than 9 times out of 10 they didn't. It was a friend from the country club. It was a neighbor's husband or wife. It was a friend of somebody from work. And I think people, what's interesting is, and I'll contrast this as we tie this down and wrap up, if you and I were going to take $250,000 or $350,000 and we were going to go out and hire a financial advisor, we would do some pretty serious due diligence, wouldn't we?
Mm-hmm.
And now if we take that same $350,000 asset and we look at the due diligence that the average buyer or seller does, they don't do that, do they?
No, they don't.
And it's an interesting dynamic, and I hope as we have this video out here and you're listening to this as a consumer, whether you're a buyer or a seller, you will give some pause to hiring the right Austin Realtor by doing some due diligence. Agents like Perry and myself welcome, as would any other professional agent, these type of questions. It drives a very, very productive dialogue that we like it for one main reason. It allows you to very clearly see whether you're working with the right agent or not, whether you decide to hire us or not. In other words, Perry and I would like to have somebody come to us with questions like this, whether they end up hiring us or not, because we know that's a great consumer who's going to have a good experience, unless they don't ask the questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Perry, as we wrap up here, you got anything else you want to add to the list here?
No, I do have one thing that, when I say this, other people feel really strongly about it. I grew up in the world of sales where my job interview started with me handing over a copy of my W-2 or 1099. Don't be afraid to ask to show what your realtor has made year to date, especially if you have a house that requires communicating to intelligent people. You want to be able to show that this guy's done transactions over and over again. The income really matters. And I carry my last check in my car at all times, just for that interview.
Well, and I bet you're not asked about it very often, but
never.
Certainly, it would be a good thing if somebody came up and had said something. If somebody really were to go through, and I'll wrap up with this, these 7 questions, an agent without a lot of experience is going to run because they're going to be like, I can't even answer these questions, not comfortably, and you're going to see them squirm a little bit. An experienced agent that offers a high level of professional services, and it's going to be potentially a great experience for a buyer or seller, is going to welcome these type of questions. So judge for yourself also how people react to these things. I think the fact that you and I are spending 10 or 12 minutes of our weekly show about this very matter is because we do have a passion about helping buyers and sellers pick the right agent. It doesn't have to be us. We just want them to have a better experience because, like we said earlier, we apologize for the average level of skills, service, and professionalism of some of our peers. I'd love for everybody to have the same kind of experience that we provide to our clients, Perry, don't you?
Absolutely. And you're proud of it, too.
Yeah, and it doesn't always happen, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Good. Well, episode 8 is in the can, so to speak. I'll look forward to talking to you again next week for episode 9. And we will next week have the market report, the total market overview, and we'll be able to look at what the actual Austin numbers look like as we turn the corner into September. I appreciate your time, Perry. It's shortened week after the holiday, and I'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you.